Okay, so if you'd like to show us obviously what you found so far, what I'll do is I'll put on here that obviously the window screen has been replaced, so obviously it's on the video for yourself there, yeah. And then just show us obviously what you found and whereabouts it's wet and bits and pieces like that.
The major thing is the carpet's wet down there.
Passenger rear, yep.
Yeah.
You can see where it's dark in there, yep.
If you feel underneath, all the underlay's wet.
Yep.
And this side's dry, but look under there.
It's wet under the seat, yeah?
Yeah, there's loads. It's loads, probably about 7 then.
I'll get you. That's no problem. Have you noticed any water in the boot, in the driver's side at all?
So I took this out to have a look.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see it's all dry. It's even dry underneath there.
Yep, so it's all good there.
But they might have got a carpet thing.
Oh, the actual board on the back, yeah. So it looks like there's signs of water has been there previously.
That's dry, so for that to be wet,
yeah.
I don't know if that's
all right.
Come from.
Well, what we'd do is we've got two possible ones there. Obviously, we've got the driver's side and we've got that, obviously, the stain on the back there. So what I'll do is I'll put a bit of tape there. Have we noticed any water in the driver's side at all, or is it solely dry there?
This one's dry.
Yeah.
So you can see it's dry, but I've not looked underneath.
I'll get you.
So,
well, what we'll do is we'll have a look underneath anyway, because these are quite easy to get under. So that's no problem there. So what I'll do is
the last thing, I don't know if you want to keep it. When the windscreen was replaced, this seal came out. So that was flapping.
Right.
And I just tucked it back in and it's not come back at all. But because it's on that side, I don't know.
It kind of corresponds.
It doesn't correspond with the water being on that side, but it's...
I'll get you.
Right, you might have guessed it's pretty wintry at the moment. Got a lovely blue sky, well, in places. A little bit over there. Guys are doing a 28-point check at the moment. James is showing Edward, and Edward's done a couple of these, but he's not done them on his own, and he's doing it. James is showing him how you do it and what we're doing. So they've already found a water leak on this car, but they're carrying on with a check to see the common places on these cars, as well as the things that we know about this specific car. So we've got a database with lots of stuff on it, and James already knows that the rear lights leak on these, so he's giving them a thorough check. And if we think they might leak, we'd probably recommend that they come off and be resealed or cleaned up, or whatever we think once we get them off is the right solution, because we don't want to fix the main leak and then 6 months down the line it's leaking from the back light. So while it's here, we might as well deal with it, because if water gets in the car, it's a nightmare, and it's a bigger expense to get the water out as well. So this particular car's soaked and it smells, but all that carpet there is absolutely sodden. I don't know if you can see that. It's absolutely soaked. So that's the surface. Of course, it will be wet underneath it. There'll be a lot of water, so we've got to get that seat out to dry it. And yeah, so better not to get any more water in if you can. Some reasons why it might make sense for you to do the diagnostic bit yourself. What we're doing on this specific car is doing like an MOT for a water leak. Well, we're checking other things on the car, and we found where the water's getting in on this particular car, but now we're checking other places, because somebody who doesn't know anything about water leak finding or anything, this particular chap's not a DIY kind of guy, so we'd rather check the other things as well. We try not for the car to have to come back, and over the years we've developed a checklist, and we're checking things that are on the car that we know to this specific car, but also known places cars leak. So we've devised a water leak checklist. So that's a bit like an MOT for water leaks, really. But you're a DIY person. You know the car. It's your car or your son's car, and you're watching this now, thinking, well, let them find the leak, and then I'll fix it. You know, well, what I would say to you is that we've made a DIY video for you to help find your leak, and also there is a list of well over 100, there's probably way more than that, but that's going up all the time, of the water leaks we've found on the models. So you should be able to scroll through that and find your car and find the leak, hopefully. So, you know, you could probably go straight to the leak, fix that, and then see if it leaks. You know, because obviously you don't then need to carry on like we are, and you don't have to pay us to do that.
We've got a Nissan Note in today for our water leak procedure. It's 2009. We're just going to show you the leaks we've found so far. So my colleague's going to go inside with the airline, and he's going to obviously test the front screen. It is an original screen, but as you can see here, we're getting bubbles. So obviously the screen is leaking, and then what that's then doing is it's running down obviously on the inside, and the result of that would be, if we look underneath this polystyrene, we can see that there is water underneath that. If I just shake the car, so we can see the water down there. The underlay as well is obviously soaking wet, so if I just push down on that, we can see how wet that is. So that would obviously be leaking down here, and as you can see there's a bit of evidence there as well. And then if we come to the back, we'll quickly show you the leak on the back as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to focus on this little grommet here. The rear lights seem to be okay on this one. So if my colleague puts a bit of water on that one there, and if we go inside, right, okay, so we can see that it's wet down here, and then what that is doing, we can see that there is run marks coming down the body shape here. There we go. So it's coming all the way down, so that corresponds to the back being wet here. So there we go. So that's all the leaks we've found so far. Right, okay, just a quick note on these Nissan Notes. They are very common to leak through these rear lights as well. So we would probably advise why it's here that we reseal these rear lights. What they have is they have little locators at the bottom, which the gasket perishes on them, and then obviously the water starts to come through. They ain't leaking yet, but because it's a 2009, we would probably recommend why it's here, because you don't want to get it all dried out and then it gets wet again. So we'll obviously put that on there for you as well.
Right, so the seat's now out of the car. You can see in there now that it's got quite a bit of water in there. We put a little spring thing up that we use to hold the water up, and then you can see there's a lot more water than people realise. On this particular car, the underlay's fairly thin, so it's going to be fairly easy to do. The plugs were out of the water. These are the plugs that plug into the bottom of the seats, so that's good. They usually are. You've got to be careful. Sometimes there is electronic units, and you need to know what they do. Most of the time, if it has got one of these square electronic units, it's an airbag control unit. So if that is remotely wet, that needs to be replaced, and it needs to be programmed into the car again, which is fairly simple, but you know, it's got to be done. Also, the retraction units for the seat belts. This particular one there's no retraction unit there. That's behind here. That hasn't got wet because it's at a certain height. But for those of you people that have been trying to do this, but the car's in a flood, often the water level can be up here somewhere, and then it comes back down again and out here. So a speaker grill's quite a good place to see where the level was. And if it's there at that height, you can bet your bottom dollar that that hose reel that's the other side of that, hose reel, seatbelt reel that's the other side of that, has got wet, and that means that would need replacing, because it may work properly, but it's got a coil unit on it that would get rusty and cause problems later. You don't want the seatbelt not working properly. So back to the drying. You want your fan heater under here, get the water out, and you want your wet vac to suck out the water. This majority of water here just comes out very quickly. Obviously you can sponge that out, or even this particular car's got it's not a rubber band, but yeah, we don't do it that way. We get a suction machine, pull the water out, then get the dryers underneath. This one, which is an unusual, has got this polystyrene blocks, and sometimes that can be embedded in the foam, so it just makes it longer drying, that's all. But these are, you know, this car's are slightly different. It's got those, and they're in the floor, and then this carpet sits on the on it. So once you've pulled all the water out, you normally need to come back to it and pull the water out again. You know, for the other cars that have got this thick foam on the bottom, you have to do it a few times. In this instance, we've put a bungee clip on it to hold the carpet up, and on this particular car it's only wet on this side, but some cars are wet on both sides. Of course, you then have to do it on both sides. All right, so heat, or if you're putting the heater on overnight, then you just want it on the cold setting or the cool setting, and then put it back on when you can monitor it. We've got a more powerful drying machines, or several of them, but we've got one that's going in this, and it may be much quicker than the standard fan heater. So this vehicle's already been fogged with this machine that sprays an antimicrobial product. So now the seat's out, you can get right underneath and spray all the areas that are contaminated. So we do that as well. Obviously we don't want to put the carpet back and when it's dry. It's better to do it when it's wet, because this will mix with the water that's there, and that then means if it's in the foam, it's more likely to be absorbed within it. So you can see there, it comes out like a spray. You can use a trigger spray, which is, you know, like the garden spray, and put it on fine settings if you want. This is a professional machine, it works from the air. But it's also doing the little tablets both sides and everything else, so you can see the whole thing's being done properly. The seat's been done already, of course. So the car's been drying now for a number of hours. We've got these pipes underneath here from the machine, and they're just pushing hot dehumidified air out these pipes right onto the hot spot. This is still wet because you know, it's only a few hours, and with these powerful machine, it's still going to take at least the whole night, maybe longer. But yeah, it's got the outlet valve thing pipe over here, and that sort of looks after the car, and it lets out the wet air. And I'll show you this. It might do this, does it? Sometimes it do. You can see there, it's steaming up on the glass a little bit. See that? But anyway, you know, the standard fan heater is putting plenty of power through. Just need to be conscious that, you know, you don't want it to fall over or something, or somebody to knock the car or something happen, and then it's blowing hot air. So I usually recommend putting it on the setting that's just warm, and you know, worst case scenario that it's not going to cause any problems, any further problems, and then it might take a bit longer, but you know. And we dried cars for many years with the fan heaters, and you know, they do the job. So you know, that's another way. You only got to dry one car, you're not going to muck about with machines like we have. So there you go.
Okay, so we've got the end video on the Nissan Note. So it's had a courtesy vac and a little bit of a clean on the outside, nothing major. If we just go on the inside, so everything's been put back together. There's no signs of any water in the car, which is a good sign. So what we done is we resealed the front window screen, resealed the clips on the rear brake lights and the rubber bung as well, which was letting water through. So it's all ready to go back in. So yep, there's no signs of any water under there, so that's good. Let's quickly check the front as well. So we're just going to put the paperwork together, and then that one's all ready for collection. Okay, lovely. And it smells nice in there now as well.
Right, so the car's all ready now and it's nice and dry. Just to show you this is the bolt from another car, but they have a star setting, like a star piece that goes in there, like It's like an Allen key, if you know what that is, but most of them have the stars. This particular car's a Nissan. It doesn't have a star, it has actually a bolt, but they put a cover over it and you have to clip these on. But the reason I'm showing you this is that a couple of things. One, that they often put a Loctite stuff on here, or sometimes these bolts actually go right through the car and come out the other side, normally into the, they have rust proofing underneath, but sometimes they're corroded and sometimes they don't come out. They are a bugger to get out. Occasionally we've had to run them up the road and get a guy to weld a piece on, because so you need to make sure you get the right size one. Some of these cheaper kits that you buy at the you know, wherever, they're not a nicely snug fit, and if you don't get your wrench in absolutely square to it, then you can chew them up. And this is one from a Toyota that we did chew up once, so we bought new ones, and that's why I've got the pleasure of showing you this one. If you get them out, they can be a bugger to get out. Sometimes they can need warming up, but you can sometimes wire brush them and get the Loctite, sometimes they have Loctite on them, off, and then we have a soft Loctite that it's not really, it won't come out, but it's very easy to get them out if should you need to. So, you know, God forbid you have to ever take the seat back out again. Occasionally that can happen. So you need it set correctly. But also when you're going in, you need to make sure you go in square, because when you're jiggling and you're going through that seat, it's sometimes tricky to do. So we keep a tap and die kit for that. But you know, just in case there was something not quite square. But you know, ideally you need to get it right first time. It's very rarely we need to use it, but we've got it, so that you can, because these need to go in square. So if you're down at the dealer ordering parts anyway, because you've got to buy a new gasket for your back light, order a couple of these. You know, they're not very expensive, but you can order 2 or 3 of those. And then if you get one wrong, or it's twisted, or it's not right, and you know you're struggling with it, or maybe it's stuck in or a bit corroded, you can just put a new one in, or get 4 new ones if you're only taking one seat out. You might be thinking, oh, it will dry on its own, I can't be bothered to get the seat out and all that, I'll see if I get the trim up. Let me tell you, you need to get the bloody seat out, all right? I can't emphasise that enough, that you haven't solved your problem if you've left the water in there. You know, the water's the problem. That's what can affect your electrics. That's what can create corrosion. That's the reason why some of these are corroded in sometimes, because they've been sat in water. So you don't want but the cars are rust proof from the outside in, not from the inside out. So you can easily get rust. I mean, okay, you're not going to do the wacky races and get your feet all the way through and then run with the car and get it, but you are going to get rust in there, and it will cause you problems and condensation. So you need to get the seat out and dry it 100%. And another good reason is that if you feel a bit of dampness later down the line, you can buy those little damp meters. We've got a sophisticated one, but you can buy them for not a lot of money, 15 quid, you know, something like that. Get them on eBay, get one, it's got a couple of prongs. You can use one of them and it will tell you. But yeah, the answer is, if it's completely dry, you'll know. You'll feel it a bit damp. You think, oh, it's a tiny bit damp there. You know, can you feel it? Of course it's damp. Get a bit of tissue, put tissue on it and see if it is wet. You'll know you haven't solved your problem if that's the case, because if you've left it to dry and then you'll think, is that wetter than it was last time? That's not going to work. All right, so put it back together, plug the seat thing in underneath, make sure that both leads are, you haven't squashed one under there, and then you need a programmer. It goes into the dashboard. Most cars have got them. Don't buy the cheap one on the internet, because they've never bloody work. So you need to spend about 100 quid or a little bit, or get it done at the garage. They charge anywhere between £25 and £35 to reset your airbag. So you plug the little diagnostic thing into the hole, usually around the centre console or underneath the steering column, or you can look on the internet and they'll tell you where yours is. You plug it in, and then you can reset the airbag. Because if the seat's been out, chances are that you're going to have to tell the car that the seat's been out and reset the airbag. The little light on the dashboard will go out once it's done. If that light comes back on, that's because you haven't connected it. All right, so get back under there, make sure you've connected it properly. That little lead plugs in, and then it should reset. If the only other time is if there was something wet. and you know, something related to the airbag, i.e. the airbag control unit has got damp. It's unusual, but we had it over the years, and you probably be advisable to get a new control unit. They're not expensive, you know, and plug a new one in and then reset it, and then you're safe, and you know then that it's good. All right, so quick overview then. All right, so just to remind you guys, first off, you need to assess whether there's any mould in the car. Don't be working on it and unbolting seats and everything else when there's mould. So there's a video on anti-mould. Put a mask on if you're going to spray the stuff around. The product we use is Formula 429. That's one we buy, but there are others out there. You want the one without the bleach. Spray the mould, pull the seat belts out. There's usually mould on them, the rear ones as well. Anywhere organic, you can often find where the mould is where the water is, which gives you a clue where the water leak is coming from. If you're not sure where it's coming from, you can find it all online. We've got 100 odd videos of the ones we found, so you know that's what we work to at the start. Then or go on Google, you can often find that, but we have got a video that tells you the do's and don'ts of finding water leaks. So once you've found and fixed your leak, then you've got to get onto the drying, and that's the bit I'm showing you now, so you've just seen. But just to remind you, get your seats out, get the correct connectors for these, the right ones for yours, take them out front and back, disconnect your wire. You need to sheet all this up, get somebody to help you lift out the seat, usually 2 people, sometimes 3 if you've got a big heavy car. A big heavy seats come in a heavy car, so you know you have to swivel it and pivot it out. Occasionally you'll have to leave the seatbelt connected. That's what we do, but you can unconnect them, but it means you've got to connect it back. So occasionally you'll see, get the seat beside the car, and then you can unclip the bits here. Get some spare clips again while you're at the dealer. You might as well get a few of those. We've got a big box of those, different ones. Unclip it, get the carpet up, get a suction machine in there, spray your antimicrobial products in underneath there, because that will be where it smells. Get the plastic out and all the bits so that you can dry it. Get a suction wet vac machine, pull all the water out, get as much water as you can, come back in an hour. Get some more out, come back in another hour, get some more out, and keep sucking it out until you've got the vast majority. Sometimes you can get a good old bath towel under there, wedge it in, squash it, squeeze it, get most of the water out, and then you want a conventional fan heater, plug it in, just leave one of the windows open a tiny little bit, make sure your interior lights are off so that you're not leaving it on and then it flattens your battery. And then you need to put your dryer in there, secure it whilst you can be around, secure it, and then the heater's not going to move or anything else. Don't prop it up on something it can fall off. Put it on the base, point it at the problem. Yeah, point it at the wet area, not too close. If you can supervise it, put it on hot. If you can't supervise it, put it on low. Use one of those safety trip out things that can plug in, that when you're plugging it in, the same thing you use on a lawnmower. Again, 15 quid or something. Put the extension lead, if it's outside, you need the extension lead where it's not going to get wet. So you put the lead and the plug in the car, out of the water, of course, and then your lead runs across to your garage. Don't put the lead anywhere somebody's going to pull it, trip on it, and then move your heater by mistake by tugging on it. So get your heater, move it around. It's going to take 2 or 3 days to do one side. And then if you've got the other side of the car, then obviously you're going to want another 2 or 3 days for that. So it depends on the carpet and the thickness. But, you know, if you can afford to just come back to it a few times over that, that's the way to do it. Plenty of heat, plenty of speed, and, you know, the fan speed. And then at night time, I would recommend turn it down, keep the fan speed on, but turn the heat down. And then keep checking it. You know, the next day, if you feel a bit wet somewhere, get a towel on that, squeeze that out. Then when it's all dry and you're happy, we'll often put a bicarbonate of soda underneath, under the carpet on the footwell, so that helps absorb any odour. Plonk it back, clip all your clips back. Then put your seat back in, get your friend, help lift it in, put the bolts in, and then check your airbag. Airbag lights are on. Make sure your seat belts are all straight. Make sure your bolts are all done up properly and torqued. And make sure you've got the correct spanner for that job. You may have to tilt these forward. Just a little tip here, actually. These, you have to pull the seat all the way forward to get to the back ones, and then you slide it all the way back. When you're lifting that seat out, be careful you don't pull that handle, because the handle that makes the seat slide backwards and forwards will make the runners move when you're lifting it, and it can be like a bloody guillotine coming out. So, you know, you don't want to scratch the bodywork. If you've sheeted it all up, it'll be fine. But, you know, you are crouching over it and trying to clamber a hand under here, and of course you've got the handle right there. Some have a bar that goes all the way across. If you pull that bar, of course, it releases the runners, and they can shoot out, and you are trying to get it out, and then they shot out. So just be careful, and be careful with your back as well. If you're lifting it, you need to keep your legs straight, because obviously lifting a something like awkward shape like this and then twisting is the worst thing you can do for that. So we have to keep our back straight, lift out, 2 people lift. Take your time on that bit. When I say sheeted this up, put a towel over, sheet it up, and then lift it out to safety. Usually we put a lump of cardboard on the floor for it to go on, so you're not going to mark it. And then, you know, carry on. Get your drying done. Make sure the seat belts are no mould on them. Put it all back together, bolt it back, put it all back in, and then do your airbag. Make sure your airbag lights turn off. If it's not and you can't do it, you haven't got the machine, go and order one online. Don't order the cheap one. Order the one that works, because you'll see then that a lot of them say they turn the airbag lights off. If it's below 100 quid, then you need to check it properly that it works. If not, take it to the local dealer. It's a 20-minute job, and you know, they plug it in, and sometimes it is only 10 minutes, but you know, allow 20 minutes, half an hour, and they turn the light off, and then try it, and then you're good to go. Don't forget the electronic boxes. Have a good look round. If your wiring a plug is a bit wet, a bit of WD-40 in it to make sure it, and airline it if you've got an airline, to blow out any water. But obviously concentrate on drying it properly there. If any of the units are wet, then you need to consider what they are. If they're an amplifier for your radio, then if the amp goes off, it's just going to lose the bass. But if it's a airbag control unit, then obviously you need to consider putting a new one on. In fact, it's a definite if your control unit has got wet at all. But, you know, obviously if it's something else, then you have to consider what that may control. You know, certain things are more important than others. All right. So I hope that helps you guys. If you're DIY, there's plenty of information in there, and I hope you can, you know, get through this, and, you know, obviously wish you a dry driving. Good luck.